Howdy, partners. Coach Dupe here. Let's huddle up. So you're thinking about taking Latin, wondering what would happen. Well, if you come here to SJP, you're going to see people like me and learn it right along with me. Now, I'll tell you what, I first started studying Latin because I wanted to send my plays into the game in Latin, befuddle the defense. But as I studied more and more about the Latin language, I realized a couple of things. Everything from a do-si-do to a damned if I know pretty much comes from Latin. You had people like Caesar, and all those Romans were smart, but you had a guy like Caesar who said, Veni Vidi Vici, Camus all conquered. Find out that it doesn't pronounce that way, by the way. It would have been Veni Vidi Vici in the classical Latin, but that's just an example. You had poets like Ovid, who said odi et amo, which means I hate and I love, right? You're talking about a concept I can get my head around, right? I love football, and sometimes I hate it. All that and more if you come and study Latin. So check it out. That's all for now. Coach Dupe, touchdown. How you doing out there? It's Charlie Mark here, living in my brother's basement in Charlestown, but I'm trying to make something of myself, so I decided to study Latin. Why'd I do that? Because my mom said, hey, why don't you make something of yourself for once? And I said, okay, I'll study Latin. At the time, I didn't know. There's like stuff like Latin on a dollar bill, and I figured, hey, if you're gonna make it, you better know what's on it, you know what I'm saying? And then there's other applications too, like my brother. He's always in a little bit of legal trouble. I don't want to talk about it anymore right now, but I mean, I learned words from the legal system that have to do with Latin. I mean, they're actually Latin is what I'm saying. It's like subpoena is Latin, nolo contendere is Latin, and I also learned you should never get caught in flagrante delicto. That's very important. Don't forget about that, even if you don't study Latin. But I'm telling you, you should study Latin because it's helping me. So that's all I got right now. I mean, I could make something myself if I study Latin, you know what I'm saying? I could be like Rondo or Pedroia or even a lawyer. That'd be awesome. Anyway, that's all I got for you right now, so watch out for the sharks in the water, guys.
Hello, world. It's Neil. I'm a free diver, and when I'm not in the water, I'm studying Latin. Why? Because lots of things that are in the water are named for the Latin. For example, the great white shark. It's Carcharodon carcharius, isn't it? And that's quite scary, even more scary than great white shark, I think, sometimes. And then other things in the water are fabulous, like I watched that movie, Finding Nemo, and I learned from my Latin tutor that Nemo is Latin word for no one. And so that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because they were finding no one, but I really thought that little fish was quite someone, wasn't he? So it's fascinating, really. And then I thought, maybe there's something outside the ocean since I spend so much time here. And I did find that it's true, like even when you look up above in the sky, you have massive relationships with Latin, don't you? You have the constellations, like Sagittarius, and you have Scorpio and Leo. Those are all things that are up in the sky that are Latin words. And then you have the planets like Venus and Neptune, and you have Mars and Uranus, or at least that's how you say it in your country. In my country we say Uranus, but no offence taken, really none at all. At any rate, I think it's very valuable to study Latin, and I think you should. And so in the meantime, just if you go under the water and then you come up again, don't forget to breathe. That's my advice.
Hello, Chef Shad ici. I am sure that you know me because I am only at a 5-star restaurant with Michelin and Zagat and all of this. I make the best chicken cordon bleu. I make the best foie gras. But what do you do if you're the man who has everything? Well, perhaps you study Latin. Because I already know German, Sie den Butzenhalter Ausklauf möchte angestellten. I already know Italian, le Americani sono tutti brutti. Of course I know French. And so I think to myself, how do I improve the perfection? Well, perhaps study Latin, because everything in French comes from Latin. It's Romance language, parfait, and everything in English almost comes from Latin. Everything smart in English is not so much smart in English, but everything that is smart comes from the Latin. And so this is why I do it. I am perfect, but I could be even improve, and so study Latin, I think to myself, and you should do the same if you want to be like me. If you don't want to be like me, at least remember you must always have butter. You can never have too much butter. Bon appetit. Top of the morning to you, or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, wherever you're watching this. Well, I'm a leprechaun, but it's not obvious, is it? Because I'm not wearing the typical garb. Why am I not wearing the typical garb? Because I have the worst posting of all the leprechauns in Ireland. I'm in Hawaii, the land of rainbows, but you can't find a single pot of gold. Too much volcanic ash, you can't dig. So what do I do in my spare time? Well, I figure I could learn Latin, because then in all those Indiana Jones movies, didn't they find where they needed to go based upon a Latin clue, right? Every time, like in that movie, they said you got to walk the path of God, and they said it's Jehovah, and then you realize that in the Latin language, Jehovah starts with an I, and they solved their crime, or whatever it was they did. That's what I want to do. I want to get the pot of gold. There's another reason I'm studying Latin, because I'm sick and tired of telling Irish jokes. I'd sure like to tell, a Latin joke in Latin, because if I have to tell that joke about the leprechaun, the priest, and the rowboat one more time, I'm going to go crazy. And then the last reason I'm studying Latin is because of the myth and mythology, right? That could be something very interesting. I could actually meet another mythological creature, not be so lonely here in Hawaii, with the only leprechaun posting in a place where there's no pots of gold but there's all the rainbows. You see what I'm getting at? So you should study Latin. There's lots of things to learn. And I hope you all end up living in a gumdrop house on Lollipop Lane.